You don't need to live in the UK to surround yourself with British English. Let's talk about it. Hey up mate, and cheers for finding this video today. I appreciate that. Now if you're new around here, my name is Dan, I'm a British English teacher and I'm here to help you communicate more confidently in English. Now, immersion is a big part of building confidence in your second language or third language or whatever it is, but a lot of people think that they can't immerse in a language if they don't live in that country, and I'm here to tell you why you're probably not right. Let's talk about it. Now, first of all, let's talk about what immersion actually is. So it means that you surround yourself with as much English as possible so your brain can start to soak it up like a sponge. You know, if you think about it, like when a baby's born, right? They don't download Duolingo. You know, they don't buy lessons on italki, do they? No. What a baby does is for 2 years, they're just surrounded by the language. And then eventually they start going, da, 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 da. And, you know, off they go, learning English or whatever. But it's the same. They don't buy textbooks. They don't sit in a classroom and memorize things. They just hear it and see it and experience it every day. And that's why surrounding yourself with language is important. Even as an adult, you need to give your brain that stimulus so it can soak it up. Okay? And this becomes part of your daily life activity, right? Because the more you see and hear and use English, the faster it'll become normal for you, right? And that's the key. The more it happens, the more you improve. And it doesn't need to be study time, right? You could just have BBC radio on in the background. You barely even listen to it, but your brain will pick up stuff. You know, you could look at stuff on Twitter in English or X or whatever it's called now, you know, all that kind of stuff. You can watch YouTube videos all day, even if you're not really watching it. It's just there. So having as much English input as you can get around you is really, really useful. And there's a bunch of benefits for this, right? Like, one of the benefits is that if you're listening to, let's say, British English, you're listening to a native British English speaker, and they are speaking for other native English speakers, right? Whether it's a TV show, podcast, whatever it is. They're not slowing it down. They're not trying to make it easy to understand. They're just speaking naturally, right? So if you're surrounded by that all the time, you're going to get used to fast, natural speech because you hear it all the time. You're going to learn weird phrases and expressions, but in context, not a list of words. So actually, you're going to be able to understand them just naturally because of how and when they were said, right? You're also going to start to develop like more automatic responses because you've heard that conversation a bunch of times, so you don't really need to think about it. And eventually, if you do this for long enough, it'll start building that idea of thinking in English. And thinking in English is one of those things that takes a long time to develop, but eventually you get there, and when you get there, it makes it easier to express yourself, right? And this is why immersion is important if you want to speak English confidently. But what happens if you decide not to do that? Well, you're not going to be ready for real life conversations for a start. Like if you only listen to your teachers or textbook English, because most of the teachers you've ever had in your life don't speak like native speakers. They just don't. They slow things down and they talk clearly and they try to enunciate every sentence so you as a learner can understand as easily as possible. Compared to when a native speaker speaks and they just speak really quickly and they don't really care if you're following or not, it's just a bit difficult, isn't it? So if you're only ever listening to textbooks and people like me who make content for learners, if you're only ever listening to people like that, you're not going to be ready for real life conversations, right? Now, another big issue is that in the UK, there's a bunch of different accents and dialects. If you've never heard any of them things before, you've got no chance. You actually got zero chance. If you've never, ever, ever heard somebody from Newcastle speak, good luck. Or not, I always throw Newcastle under the bus because it's a difficult accent, but Cornwall, Sheffield, Edinburgh, whatever, any of them places. If you've never heard somebody speak like that, if you've only ever heard people speak in an RP accent, you might be a bit bloody confused if that goes to Sheffield and us, as we talked about in a previous episode. So if you don't want to get confused by accents and dialects, immersion's pretty important because that's how people really speak in the UK. And yeah, like I said, you're not going to be able to keep up with fast speech because you're just not going to be experienced enough to deal with it. You're not going to understand the rhythm and the linking and the way that we drop words and we push words together. If you've not had that experience, you're not going to be able to keep up. And this is the biggest complaint that people have, is that I can't keep up with native speakers. It's because you haven't immersed enough. Basically, you haven't built that experience. So, yeah, easily to put it, if you, let's say you end up in London, somebody's like, all right, mate, fancy a capper? Fancy a cap? Fancy? Like an expensive cap? No. Do you want a cup of tea? You know? And that was a terrible Cockney accent, by the way. So that's what happens if you don't immerse. So by now, you probably start to realize that, okay, immersion's a good idea, right? So there are some things that you can try. First of all, you're going to use your tabs, which is slang for ears, by the way. And you're going to listen like a native, not like a learner. So you're not going to be going and looking on YouTube for people that make videos helping you learn English. That's not what we're talking about here. We want to be watching British TV shows. Use a VPN if you have to. I made a whole episode on my YouTube channel all about British TV shows that you should check out. You know, things like Taskmaster, things like IT Crowd, and whatever else. There's a bunch of them there. Go check it out. So watch British TV shows because they're designed for native speakers, right? And it'll also help you pick up accents and slang and all that good stuff. Listen to BBC Radio. You can go on the BBC Radio website and you can listen to the national ones like BBC Radio 1 or whatever. But you can also listen to local radio. Like if you're going to live in Birmingham, go check out BBC Radio Birmingham and listen to their accent for a bit, right? Or you could try LBC, is another online radio station, or Talk Sport. If you're into sport, you can listen to Talk Sport in the UK, and it's going to give you a lot of natural speech, right? You can also try podcasts, things like Off Menu is quite popular. There's a bunch of them. Just go, but don't find stuff for learners, go find stuff for native speakers, yeah? So you're going to use your lug oils, which is another way of saying ears, by the way. The next thing you're going to do is open your gob, which means mouth, and you're going to speak every day. So you don't need a native speaker to practice with, you just need to speak, right? And this could be whether it's daily speaking exercises or whether you're keeping an audio diary or you find a language partner, you know, whatever. You just need to speak every single day, as much as humanly possible. Now, I've got a community called the BritSpeak Hub, or BritSpeak Mates it's currently called. And basically, in here, there's other learners that you can connect with and speak with in the online Zoom classroom. So you can go there and you can speak to other people. But it also has daily English speaking exercises where you complete an exercise, you upload the audio, and I send you some feedback. And that's available as part of the BritSpeak Mates community. So if you are struggling to find a way to practice speaking every day, you might want to check that out. The link is in the description. The third thing you can do is start to train your brain. Now, this is where you try things like not translating from your native language and try using English directly. For example, look around where you are and label everything that you can see in English without thinking about the word in your native language. Keep an audio diary on your phone. Every day, record for 1 minute. What did you do today? And then practice describing pictures. Things like this, where you need to think directly in English. And it's a skill that can be learned. It takes time and it's bloody frustrating, but it is possible. So start trying to train your brain, and immersing in English by thinking in English as much as possible will help you quite a lot. And the other thing is try and build it into your schedule. Build your immersion into your schedule. Like if you've got 20 minutes while you're driving to work in the morning, bang on a podcast for 20 minutes, but make sure it's for native speakers. If you're really into football, instead of watching football in your own language, try and listen to it on TalkSport or whatever. If you're really into, I don't know, knitting, find a YouTuber who's really into knitting that's a native speaker. Why not? For example, my wife's really into like fish for whatever reason. She loves like aquariums and terrariums and stuff. She watches a load of native speakers that make videos about ponds and aquariums and stuff. Find whatever you're into and just find a native speaker that's doing that and spend as much time as you can doing that and build it into your schedule. So wherever you've got time in your schedule, try and fill it with something in English, even if it's just, I'm cooking dinner, I'm going to bang an episode of IT Crowd on in background. Sounds good, doesn't it? And that's something that you could try to do. So there are some tips for you. And now it's over to you. What is your favorite way to immerse in English? Let me know in the comments and we can share our ideas together. And if you're looking for some recommendations about British TV shows that you can watch, check out this video next.